where you can look on Google Earth and see something under the ice protruding through, especially if you go back to 2013, you can see some big mechanical type device. It's not the photos that I've seen of the big craft. And then the third location would be the Union Glacier on the Palmer Peninsula, and that is where the Fitbit data shows a lot of people going there. But I do know there's an outfitter that goes through the Union Glacier, and they have an outpost camp there, but where the people were going was on the other side of this mountain range. So there might be something there.
So are they going near this supposed 3-mile craft, or are they going by the pyramid? Where are they going?
Well, they can go anywhere. That's the interesting thing. And so it's not a military expedition to go there. In fact, all of Antarctica is like a giant biosphere. It is, this is one of the rumored pyramids. Now, my logistics person with the tour groups that can take you down there has said it's nothing more than rocks coming through the ice. They call them nunataks. That's according to him. And I said, well, has anybody been there? Have you climbed it? And he said, I'll get back to you and let you know. And he hasn't yet. But I have a meeting with them on Friday at their office in Salt Lake City. So I'm still following these leads and looking to get some information on these sites.
Tony, we think we're busy. This guy's gone from Area 51 all the way down there. Now he's got all these meetings and everything.
That's just amazing. Vacation right there. I'm
This is leisure time.
Yeah, just leisure.
Yeah, I mean, that pyramid thing was kind of hot a while ago, and then it sort of died off. I don't know. It's really curious to find out. As this ice continues to melt, I mean, it's the only positive thing out of global warming I can think of is that this is exposing some stuff in Antarctica.
But one thing that I think is fascinating is if it is climate change, if it is global warming, it's funny that the governments haven't done something about to slow it down. It's because it's speeding up as far as we know, and you think if the governments want to keep this, closed off and not get exposed to the population of the world, you would think they would do everything they can to slow it down. What do you think about that, Brad?
There are certainly regions of Antarctica that are melting very quickly, including the region I went to, which is northern Palmer Peninsula. And I went to the Palmer base, which is a U.S. base. And the station manager there, who's been going for 20 years, has said that he saw the glacier on Anvers Island just shrink to the point where you can see the mountain range behind. And you can also, there have been breaking off of the glaciers, and new islands are even exposed. They didn't even know were there 20 years ago.
Wow.
And also population of penguins are shifting. For example, the Gin2 and chinstrap penguins that we saw are actually growing in numbers, and they are now going into colder waters, whereas the Adele penguins are losing numbers because they are cold water hunters and the water is heating up. Now, what's so terribly interesting about all this is that other parts of Antarctica are actually accumulating ice, and,
really?
And the ice cap is getting bigger. On my way back, just 2 weeks ago, I had a 12-hour layover in Miami Beach. So I went down to the beach, and there is no discernible sea level rise. So it's like Mother Nature has a way to balance itself out, and Antarctica is not contributing to the sea level rise. Even NASA has come out with a recent study saying Antarctica is even gaining more ice than it's losing.
But it's moving, so it's exposing certain areas, right?
Yeah, well, certain areas on their heat map show red areas that are melting at a faster rate, but also blue areas that are gaining ice.
Well, the thing about these red areas is this is like sort of the finale of this whole thing, is that if in fact this continues to happen and one of these things does expose either a pyramid, a base, a ship, this will force the hand of disclosure. This will change everything because there's no way to hide that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, unless they can hide it just because Antarctica is so terribly inaccessible. I was able to see the numbers of visitors who have gone to Antarctica, and it's only opened up in the last few decades where you can travel down there, and it's only about 350,000 people a year can make it for the whole season, which is closing right around now. It won't open up again until middle November. So we added up those years and decades of people going down there, and it's really only 1% of the human population have ever set foot in Antarctica or seen it.
Yeah, we just need one guy from CNN to go down there and take a picture of the ship.
Yeah,
I mean that's
all it take.
That's right.
That is,
and everybody would believe it.
I mean that is the truth, that this could force the hand of disclosure. That's the exciting thing about this. I think.
And you say that the most of the focus has been in one particular spot. They've not discovered anything or other. Have you noticed maybe a migration to another area that maybe of new discoveries, or is it mostly just the one spot?
Well, the one spot where I went to on the northern arm of the Palmer Peninsula is where about 95% of all visitors go.
Right.
So to go deep into the inner part of the continent is very difficult. It's expensive, and hardly anybody goes there. So it could very well be that there is something being exposed in the ice and just nobody knows about it yet, or perhaps it's still down there. But I agree with you, Captain Ron. This is what could certainly force the hand of disclosure on Earth without even having ships show themselves.
Right. Wouldn't that be amazing that we're all thinking, we're waiting for all these things to happen, and then it turns out there's some ice melting and it reveals itself? And
well, I mean, over centuries and even millennials. I mean, how many times that something shifted and we ended up finding a new discovery that we would never would have before.
That's right.
Somebody in the chat room asked this, and we can all try to take a crack at it. But he said, "Is the movement of ice part of the magnetic pole movement? Do you think that could be because of the alignments of the world itself, the magnetic poles moving and shifting? Could that affect that movement of ice?"
That's a good question, and we hear a lot about the North Pole magnetic pole that's moving towards Siberia right now at a very fast clip. It's also moving in the southern hemisphere. There are 4 poles in Antarctica. This is really interesting. We don't have that in the North Pole because we only have the magnetic North Pole and the
in Santa's house, right?
Geographic North Pole, but you have a geographic South Pole where all lines of latitude meet, longitude, I should say, and you also have this magnetic pole, which is now off of South America or south part of Antarctica, and you also have a geomagnetic South Pole, which is about where the Vostok Station and Lake Vostok is, and then you have a pole of relative inaccessibility. It's the most remote part of Antarctica. So it is moving in Antarctica, the magnetic pole, but not quite as fast of a clip as it is in the Arctic. Now, if this were to lead something to like a pole shift, then certainly the poles would completely reverse or move 45 degrees, and Antarctica might become that warm temperate climate once again.
Well, it's interesting, Brad. I'm sure you before you went down there, you've heard all the Admiral Byrd stuff and about the hollow Earth and all that. What is your take on any of that stuff?
Well, that's really interesting, and this is the one thing I did find out is there absolutely is a no-fly zone over a large swath of area near the South Pole.
Now, isn't that alone, just that fact alone, curious to you? I understand why you can't fly over Area 51, but why wouldn't you be able to fly there? Who would care?
Exactly. And hardly anybody ever even goes there, so why even have a no-fly zone? They say it's because of sensitive equipment and they're testing, and that could very well be true, but the fact is, and I was just with George Norrie yesterday on his show Beyond Belief in Boulder, and I told him the same thing, and he's, well, why would they even care? Nobody goes there. And it's true, hardly anybody does go there, and they actually bring in most of the supplies on these long cat track trains from McMurdo Base. So they're not even flying in, they're driving in. So hardly anybody would ever fly. Why would you even have a no-fly zone? And that is where Admiral Byrd said that he flew an airplane and saw a great big opening near the South Pole, flew his plane into it. There was enough room to fly around and come back out. So that's interesting that there definitely is a no-fly zone and no-go zone either, because there were these two women from New Zealand who were attempting to cross-country ski across the polar plateau about 10 years ago. It was written up in Nexus magazine. And as they were approaching the South Pole, they were stopped by Navy SEALs who said, nope, you're not going any further. You're coming with us.
That's curious to me.
Yeah. It's very curious. And Antarctica, per the Antarctica Treaty, is open to everybody. It is a land of science and discovery. No nation owns it. There are a few that make claims, but those claims are not recognized by the governing bodies of the Antarctica Treaty.
Right, you don't need a passport or anything, that you could just go there, right?
That's right. In fact, when we went there, we got stamped out of Argentina, and we were like in no man's land until we got back and got stamped back in.
Interesting.
That reminds me when in the early 1900s when the we heard about in the bottom of the Grand Canyon, when the Native Americans and discoveries of ancient sites and artifacts from Egypt and all this stuff, and then the government came in, and to this day is still cordoned off, so that you can't even get close to it, even though you don't need a visa or anything to get there, but the government will not allow you to even get close to it. So it's funny how when anything of value, or even hearsay,
there's nothing there, but you can't go there.
Yeah, there's nothing there, but you can't even get close to it.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, it does make you wonder.
Yeah, I don't like the smoke of that. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's true. And then there are areas in the Grand Canyon that actually take on Egyptian names, Osiris, Mesa, and the Tower of Isis, and things like that. And that is the no-go zone in the Grand Canyon, where supposedly this person named Kincaid found these caves that had Egyptian artifacts. And to this day, that is a no-go zone. I've looked at topo maps of the Grand Canyon trying to locate some of these areas, and there's places you cannot go, even in our own national parks, which are supposed to be owned by all of us.
National
just
park.
In the same way that Antarctica should be accessible to any scientist or any person who can get down there if they want to go. But
I mean, that alone, if there's nothing else, this is a fascinating thing.
Yeah.
Just this. So after studying this and after going there firsthand, where do you sit on this topic right now? Do you think anything's going on down there? What's your gut tell you that there's something there? And if so, what do you think it is?
Well, you have to understand, Antarctica is the 5th largest continent in the world. It's larger than Europe and twice the size of Australia. It's about as big as the lower 48 and Canada combined. So the spaces and distances are quite vast. And the possibility of something being down there is very great, because Antarctica is also the most geothermically active continent in the world as well. There are 92 active volcanoes, and we went and visited Deception Island, which was steaming with sand. So there's volcanoes up and down the Trans-Antarctic mountain range, and various volcanoes all over the place, which would lead perhaps to the melting ice, but also making giant cavities under the ice, which I'm told can be very pleasant to visit, like 60 or 70 degrees with these geothermal ponds. And in fact, that's why the Nazis chose this area called, well, they call it New Schwabenland, but they found this area called the Schirmacher Hills, which has a geothermal fault line, and these ponds that grow, or that percolate up, called the Schumacher Ponds, where, according to the author of Dark Star, who wrote about Nazi bases in Antarctica, said that the German soldiers were even able to grow their own crops there because the ground was so warm, and it never got super freezing tundra there. And 99 point something percent of the whole continent of Antarctica is covered in ice. So there's a lot of areas that you could hide out, or things could be left over from an antediluvian civilization. And I have slides in my presentation, hope you guys can come to it at Contact, that show some really strange anomalies that you can see in Google Earth. And Google Earth also masks out certain areas too.
I was going to ask if
and sometimes they're even kind of sloppy with it. Like the slide I use has some hills that are exposed, and then you just see the straight line and a big white blotch right next to it where you're not supposed to see what's down there. Well, so there is censorship going on to find out what's really happening in all regions of Antarctica.
Well, Brad, let's go there then. What about the possibility? You also went to Bariloche, which I'm now very fascinated. It does seem like a real possibility that obviously a lot of these Nazi guys did get out, did make it to Bariloche. Maybe even Hitler, they say. What are your thoughts on this whole Nazi thing and possibly them going to Antarctica? Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, and I will be doing a presentation called The Mysteries of South America, where I was on the trail of some of these fugitive Nazis post-World War II, and Bariloche being one location where Hitler had a house. And we tried to get close to it. I saw the bay and the area, but it's very much like a gated community. You can't just go walk across the lawn and say, "Oh, Hitler slept here." It's pretty closed off. But they did have a place where there was a seaplane. If he had to make a quick, hasty retreat, they had big swashes of land, some giant ranches in Argentina and in Chile, south of Santiago.
Huge guard towers.
Pardon me?
Huge guard towers.
And huge guard towers, that's right, including many SS officers that followed the rat lines and escaped to South America. Another interesting place I went and visited was a place called La Falda, and it's just above Cordoba. There's another mountain range in South America a lot of people don't know about, and it's also home to reported UFO sightings too. But in this town, La Falda, is the Eden Hotel, and it's now just open for tours. So I took the tour because there were some pictures of Hitler having dinner with the owners of the hotel who were supporters. So I took the tour, and there are documentaries about the Eden Hotel where the young chambermaid said, "Oh yeah, we saw him here. He lived after World War II." So I asked the guide on the trip, he could speak English pretty well. I'm like, "What's your feeling? Do you think he was here?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, Hitler definitely survived the war, and he came here afterwards. He was here in '46, and he had different homes throughout South America, and he survived the war."
I don't see how that's implausible to me. I think that could happen. Why not?
Could happen.
We've caught guys in the last 10 years. They've gotten guys out of there that were his number 3 guy or whatever. If he got out, why wouldn't the top guy get out?
Yeah, exactly. And we all know that he had doppelgangers that looked very much like him that could have just popped a cap in one of those guys and burned them at the bunkers and thrown them off their trail.
That's not that far-fetched to me. It's not.
No, I mean,
a lot of these other ones seem harder to believe, but there's a lot of evidence or certainly some data that shows that this is very possible.
I mean, I've known people from Brazil and Argentina that talk openly about Nazis and Germans that came over from the war. So, I mean,
Bariloche, doesn't it look like a German town?
Oh, it's so Bavarian. You feel like you're in south of Germany when you walk around.
That alone is interesting. Why would that be there?
What's even more impressive is that the FBI on their website called The Vault has released 700 pages of declassified FBI documents tracing Hitler and other top SS and Nazi leaders to South America. Mm-hmm. Then we allied with them, and then this is where the whole Fourth Reich concept comes from, that it became more of a third power. We often hear about the U.S. versus the Soviet bloc in the Cold War. Well, there could have been a third force as well, and that was the escaped Nazis and quite a bit of loot that they had gotten out of South America, gotten to South America, and were able to invest and hide themselves and stay basically invisible.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Well, let's ask you another area. See, Brad's one of these guys we need 6 hours for, Tony.
Right.
There's so many things to discuss with him. What about
That's just the intro.
I heard a rumor that you got a chance to see Brother Forrester down there and check out the Paracas skulls.
Yeah, we didn't actually make it to Paracas, but we made it to Andarctica, and there is the baby skull. And I met the proprietor of the museum there who found it in the Sacred Valley. And we got to see the actual elongated skull, whose head was as big as the entire torso of its body.
Wow.
Just incredible. Then, of course, I went to Tiwanaku. That's another location where elongated skulls have been. And when I was on the tour with Nassim Harriman and Brian Forrester for a week and a half, I was able to actually see a couple more sites, such as Sacsayhuaman, right above Cusco, is another reported location that Brian Forrester pointed out that they had just found elongated skulls in 2012 when they excavated a different site, part of this archaeological site right next to the major megalithic blocks. So they're popping up all over the place. In Cusco as well, they've been found. It looks like they were the progenitor race, that they were the Viracocha people, or the pre-Incans that we hear so much about that built in this megalithic style.
Yeah, Brian came out with some DNA studies less than a year ago where it was from like Turkey.
Right, which is really
Those
fascinating.
skulls were traced back to.
That's the good
They
thing
have
about
found
DNA.
them there. They have found them near the Black Sea region,
Right, exactly. Black Sea was
and all over the place.
Hey, we got a
Yep.
listener that wants to know about what are your thoughts on the Pir Reis Map, that old map of Antarctica that actually showed a lot of the features of the continent from before they could possibly have known.
Absolutely. I include this in my talk too because it's so important. This map was drawn in 1519, and on the liner notes it says that it was based on earlier maps, including some that came all the way back from the Library of Alexandria. So what's so remarkable here is we can trace the coastline all the way from the Caribbean, the whole east coast of South America, and even islands off of Antarctica that were not even known until sonar scanning under the ice could detect islands there. So it's truly remarkable that there could be knowledge of the continent of Antarctica as well as southern Patagonia, which was not even sailed until Magellan made his way through, and Drake 50 years after him. They thought it was a southern continent. They thought it connected all the way through to Terra Australis, this unknown land, a southern continent, which has been hypothesized to exist ever since the ancient Greeks. Because if you look at the land masses of the world, it's very top heavy in the northern hemisphere. There has to be something big down there in the south to balance out the continents. So it's the only place in the world that was believed to have existed before it was actually discovered. And we're only told that it was discovered in 1820 by whalers and sealers who were going down there
That's amazing.
to go hunting.
Oh, the Pir Reis maps, hundreds of years before that. Yeah.
Hundreds of years before that,
Yeah.
even. And there are other maps, the
Right.
Bache map and the
And they say
Phineas
he
map.
based his off of some others, so that must be older yet. It just has to keep building. Now, it's interesting that, even without the pyramids down there, even without the spaceship under the ice that they may or may not have, look how fascinating Antarctica is. Just this shit is
It really is. It's an otherworldly environment. On a blue sky day, I was up on the deck with two other Americans, my girlfriend and another guy that we met. And we were with 11 other Polish sailors. So we pretty much hung out the American crew. And one day it was a nice blue sky day. In fact, we had 2 days that were warm enough to be in our T-shirts and bathing suits.
Wow.
And even jumped in, did the polar plunge.
You did not.
I did, yeah,
Damn.
among icebergs.
Well, how cold's the water? 32?
Oh, it's freezing. It's totally cold, but it was like 60 degrees that day. It was totally warm.
I was gonna say how fast did you get numb?
How fast did we get out of there?
Right.
And but there were days that it was nice blue sky weather, and the only colors you see are blue, black, and white. There's no green. There's nothing else. Even the animals like the whales and the penguins and the seals are black and white. And it's just this otherworldly climate. In fact, the dry valleys near McMurdo Base, where it hasn't rained in thousands of years, no precipitation whatsoever, they practice with the Mars lunar rover there because it's such an otherworldly climate.
That makes sense.
Kind of like behind you, Tony, at least there's some shrubs. There's nothing that grows there.
Aren't you cold, Tony?
The biggest life form that lives in Antarctica on the continent are these tiny little springbok insects. There are mosses and funguses that also grow, and some of the northern island have certain varieties of grasses. But apart from the mammals and the birds that come there to feed, that lay their eggs, there really are no animals that live in Antarctica.
That doesn't surprise me. What was the coldest? Was it ever just brutally cold, like crazy cold?
Oh, it was, for sure. It snowed one day about a foot on the boat. At night, it would get way below zero. Most of the time, we're fully dressed in our cold weather clothes, and hardly had a chance to even take them off. We only got one shower a week. So
Tony, about average for you, right?
I know, yeah.
So
pretty much.
Tony, you can handle it down there.
Well, somebody in the chat room asked when was the last time that Antarctica was last free of ice. I just looked it up, and Brad, do you know just by offhand?
Oh, well, it would have been at least several 100,000 years, if not millions of years.
Well, this says 35 million years ago is when it was last free, but that's Google, so who knows?
One thing they do is ice core samples up on the polar plateau where the ice is over 2 miles deep.
Wow.
And when you pull out these ice samples, it's kind of like the tree rings on a tree where you can see drought years, you can see wet years, you can even see when the nuclear testing was happening. But even further back, you can see when volcanoes went off because they left a layer of ash.
Right.
And it's as exact of a way of telling time through these ice core samples as it is from a tree ring.
It's incredible.
It is.
I'm curious if, like Scott Walter, who goes down and does his forensic,
forensic archaeologist. Now, he does Just America Unearthed, and I was on one of the shows with him. He just got renewed.
I know. I'm
with
excited.
The History Channel.
I'm so excited.
I hit him up for a couple more shows. I have some ideas for him.
Yeah, he said he's going to come on in about a couple months, so we're excited to have him back. But fascinating, and I think that's what a lot of people within Antarctica and even the North Poles, because there's still so much mystery, and human curiosity. We're like the cats.
That's why we do this nonsense.
That's right. We just it's the mystery of it, and every year something can be discovered, and like you said, it's 2 miles deep. Who knows? And how many millions of years has captured something for us to discover? So fascinating.
Hey, Barry, what was it like going over? I heard the hard part is going from Argentina on the boat over to Antarctica. Was it brutal?
Brutally hard. Yeah. The roughest seas in the world are the Drake Passage, where the Atlantic meets the Pacific. And not only is it very, very cold, but rough seas, so much so that when you're down in the trough, all you see is water on all sides of you. And you're like, how are we ever going to survive this? But the boat then just rises up on the trough, and then you can look out and see for miles around, and then down you go again.
See, that's a diaper filler, man. That's tough.
We got onto the Drake Passage, and within a couple hours, 3/4 of the crew and the guests were all throwing up, including myself. We were incapacitated for 3 days.
Oh, geez.
Like, just going to the bathroom was the hardest chore you could imagine. I lost about 20 pounds.
Wow.
Everybody that seen me was like, Yeah,
You do?
My
I
face
noticed
is
it.
thinner, and
Yeah.
he lost the gut. I mean, George Norrie's like, Brad, you look great. So, well, you don't know what I went through, George. And
Tony, I
told
should
him,
plan a trip. I should just do the boat ride.
just do the boat ride.
Yeah.
Well, Captain Ron and I have talked about this, like some of these shows that heights and snakes and going in these tight cliffs. I'm like, we would be crapping our pants.
We're better here in the studio, right? This is
you pay the price to go there, and even on big cruise ships, even 50% of people on the great big cruise ships also get seasick. So it's not easy. Now they are starting to do flights from Punta Arenas, Chile to King George Island, and then you can catch a cruise from there, and it's no problem at all. Once you're in the channels and between the islands and the Palmer Peninsula, the seas are very calm. It's no problem. But,
the flight makes more sense to me. That boat ride, boy, that'd be tough.
Add a couple thousand to your trip to do that.
Right.
Oh, well, that's the other thing. Yeah, well, I guess
it's expensive too. And we got a great deal for $6,000 per person for 26 days, and that's the lowest of any trip I found. Most cruise ships, you only get 6 days in Antarctica. It's 2 days crossing the Drake, 6 days there, and then 2 back.
Wow.
So it took us 92 hours to get there, and that's pretty close to as fast as you can make it in a sailboat, just under 4 days.
92 hours.
Yep.
Bouncing around like that. There's no
Pure
reprieve. How do you sleep like that?
That's all you can do. You can just lay there. And then, fortunately, when you're laying down, seasickness is not as acute. As soon as you get up, then the queasiness starts. And if you can't make it to the up to the deck to throw up, it's the kitchen sink or the toilet.
So when these major royalties and the politicians go down there, definitely they probably don't do the ships. They probably fly in. But how is the terrain? I mean, even with flying into there and landing on this ice, I mean, how do they do that without completely crashing and burning? I mean,
they have skis on the planes.
Oh, they do,
to land on the ice. Yeah, for sure.
Got it.
Probably the King George Island airstrip is a regular airstrip, but then when you go afield, certainly the planes have skis for the ice.
Well, let's go back to the beginning of your trip. Didn't you start off towards Area 51?
That's funny you say that. Yeah, I did. I picked up Emily, my girlfriend partner, and we drove through Nevada. And I had a conference out in Albuquerque, New Mexico, just a week before we left for South America. And we stopped in Rachel, Nevada. I go there every time I'm passing through.
Oh, yeah.
There's some cool hot springs right at the beginning of Highway 375 that we went to, and did Vegas a couple nights, saw some friends there. And then
I saw you went by that Walter Lake or whatever, right?
Yeah, Walter Lake. There's another great mystery there with rumored submarine passage to the Pacific Ocean from there. In fact, there is a big Marine base in the middle of Nevada, right out there in Hawthorne, Nevada. Why there? Maybe it is.
Well, doesn't that seem like a curious place for a Marine base?
Yeah, submarines in middle of Nevada. There's a whole state of California to get through before you're in the ocean.
There you go, Tony. Cool, yeah. Tony's pulling photos of that up for us right now, and it's interesting. That's a hell of an adventure, Brad. I don't know, man. I don't know if I could. Just the journey getting there would wipe me out.
I sure want to try, but I think I'd rather live it through Brad.
Yeah, well, you guys aren't far away. We could do a little road trip.
Let's do it.
Contact in the desert.
I'd love that. Let's go.
I don't mind going here. It's getting over that Drake area that makes me nervous.
I think I would just love to.
The Drake Shake, man. I don't know.
I would just love to see Captain Ron do it. I'm just.
But you're halfway across. There's nothing you can do. It's like once you leave,
you're like, I want out. Nope,
you're stuck. That's the brutal part. What do you do? You can't go. Okay, I want to go back. You're going.
You can't go back. And we had a late start because of the tides. The keel was in the mud, so we had to wait for high tide, and we lost most of the first day. We pulled out that night. And then the next morning, we're cruising along the Beagle Channel, and it's all so nice. And the penguins are swimming along with us and dolphins. And we're thinking, oh, this is going to be great. Then we turned the corner, and we got onto the Drake, and it was real rough seas.
Wow.
And since they needed to make up time, they thought, well, we'll catch the storm that was behind us, and it actually got us there in very quick time. As I said, 92 hours, which is really fast for a sailboat. But it also was very, very rough seas, and we didn't take our Dramamine in time.
And then you got that coming back, right?
He threw up the Dramamine.
We took him coming back and did not get sick, which was fortunate. But it took 6 days to get back.
6 days of bouncing around like that.
Yeah, but then we got to see Cape Horn too, which is
that'd been cool.
For a mariner. It's like every mountain climber wants to see Mount Everest.
Right.
Well, for a mariner to see Cape Horn, these Polish guys who are big sailors out in the North Sea, they just were so delighted to see it. They popped the champagne, and it was a big party.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah. And then we knew we were close, and the next day we were back in the Beagle and arriving back in Ushuaia.
Well, Brad,
and it was only 1 month ago today. We were having our celebratory dinner with the crew of the Chief One.
Wow.
Saying goodbye to everybody.
That's crazy. Like I said, I'd love to go on an adventure, but I think I'd rather start local. About a year or so, I'm going to be going down to South America and tour some of the Amazon. And
nice.
So I know you did a trip down there to Argentina and all the good stuff that we love to talk about. But did you get a chance to go to Brazil, maybe Amazon, see some of the sights and wonders of the Amazon?
Did not go to the Amazon. I got pretty close, being in Peru and Bolivia, which are just on the upper side of the Amazon. But when we crossed over into Argentina, it got real hot and sticky. It felt like we were in the jungle regions at that point, but then kept going south to Patagonia, and it cooled off right away again. It was actually, I thought it was so cool that I would be skipping winter, and it wasn't the case at all. We were in very cold weather places in South America during their summer, which is our winter up here. Right. And now here I am in Colorado, and it's still snowing, and I'm going skiing.
You can't get away from it.
Yeah, I like winter too. Worked out.
Well, I know coming up, it's Contact in the Desert. It's coming up really quick. I mean, it's only just a few months away.
Brad's the first one we're doing. He kicked us off, and it's just going to be Zoom, and then we're there.
And we hope that anybody that hasn't got their tickets, get it now, because a lot of these events and speakers sell out, and so you want to make sure you get your tickets. And Brad is, one of the fixtures for Contact in the Desert. Two of his lectures, Hidden Anomalies of Antarctica and Mysteries of South America. I think you guys are going to miss out on a lot if you don't go see this man and all the other speakers at Contact. So,
agreed.
Yeah. So, Brad, tell us, do you have anything in between coming up that people might want to?
Yeah, you haven't been doing anything lately, Brad. Do you have anything going on at all?
Yeah, it's kind of boring life right now.
Do I ever? Yeah. As soon as I get back, I'm just booked, bam, 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 interviews, and now conferences. I'll be at Beyond the Matrix in Sedona, Arizona, right before spring equinox. That's 19th, 20th of March. And then back to back, I've got Human Origins Conference with Jim Rivera and other speakers in Rio Rancho, New Mexico on the 22nd and 23rd of March. Then I'm doing the 5D Las Vegas, 19, 20, 21 of April. I'm speaking at the Ions Auditorium in Petaluma, California, doing both of my talks in one night. That's a free talk at Ions in Petaluma on May 16th. And then, of course, Contacting the Desert, May 31st, June 1, 2, 3. And most of my talks are on Friday, the first day of Contact. So do get there for May 31st. And I'll be on a panel of forbidden archaeology on that Friday. And then on the Sunday, I'm on a panel discussion about Antarctica with Dr. Michael Sala, Emery Smith, and Linda Moulton Howe. Yep. So an esteemed panel, but I'm the only one that's ever been there. So
you could say that to a lot of people you meet. I mean, how often you meet someone that's been there? That's an amazing adventure. Man, we really loved having you on here. It was really interesting to hear about the firsthand experience.
I remember.
Always great to talk with you guys. Thanks for having me on and kicking off Contact in the Desert Week.
Absolutely.
All right, well, that's it for this show, but make sure you tune in every week. We have a lot of shows coming up with a lot of the speakers from Contact, and we want to make sure you guys are part of it. And please subscribe and leave us comments, and we'd love to hear from you. So, but until next time, this is Tony Sweet and Captain Ron. Truth be told, take care. Bye.
Fact and fiction are sometimes a little closer than people think.
These things come down and they contact people, they engage with people, and they've been doing it for a long time.
It's human nature to be fearful of the unknown.
It's time to make contact.